Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Sonoma County Drought Update for Thursday, June 2nd. Thank you for joining us today. I'm David Rabbit, District 2 Supervisor, a member of the Sonoma Water Board of Directors, and Board Liaison to the Water Advisory Committee. Let's begin with a brief message from Sylvia Lemos from our communications team for our Spanish-speaking viewers. Sylvia?
Buenas tardes, soy Silvia Lemos del Condado de Sonoma. Este es un ayuntamiento virtual sobre el impacto de la sequía en el condado. Si usted está presente en el Zoom y quiere escuchar la presentación en español, favor de oprimir el símbolo de globo que significa interpretación. La única cosa es que nuestro intérprete está un poco delatado, así es que gracias por su paciencia por la interpretación. Esta actualización se está transmitiendo en vivo por nuestro canal de YouTube con interpretación al español. Para escuchar la versión en español puede usar el link de YouTube que se encuentra en la publicación de esta reunión en la página de Facebook del Condado de Sonoma. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Sylvia. You know, we've had a series of town halls on drought in the recent past, and tonight is the first in a series of monthly town halls that Sonoma Water will be staging this summer and fall to give you the latest information on the drought and how it is impacting our county. So we're joined today by a panel of experts. We have Don Seymour, our Water Resources Manager for Sonoma Water, Jennifer Burke, the Director of Water, Santa Rosa Water, and a member of the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership, Christopher Watt, the Senior Engineering Geologist with the North Coast Regional Water Board, and we are being aided by our county's communications team, including their manager, Paul Gullickson. We're here to give you an update on the drought in Sonoma County and the response by local and state agencies, share some practical information about the things that you can do to prevent our water shortage from becoming even worse, and provide you with some resources that will help city and rural residents alike address some of the problems that are being caused by this drought. At the end, we'll have made time to answer as many of your questions as we can. There are three ways that you can pose questions for our panelists. If you have joined us on Zoom, please type your question in the Q&A box down there at the bottom of the screen. If you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, you can type questions into the comments area below as well. Or you can email questions to our public affairs team at publicaffairs, one word, at sonoma-county.org. While tonight, we are going to primarily focus on current conditions and tips on conservation to get through this third year of severe drought. I also want you to know longer-term drought management options are being discussed by water experts and professionals across four broad categories, which include increasing supply, reducing demand, improving operational efficiencies, and modifying policy and regulations to better address drought conditions. We all recognize the volatile weather patterns we are experiencing due to climate change. We are working diligently to respond and adapt in an appropriate manner. At the end of the day, however, we still need rainfall to replenish the reservoirs, ponds, and aquifers. So with that, let's start with Don Seymour, our Water Resources Manager for Sonoma Water, for an update on the current water supply. Don?
Thank you, Director Rabbit, and good afternoon, everyone. Just give me a moment, and I have some slides I want to pull up before we get going. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of difficulty.
Okay.
Hang on.
I'm here now.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of difficulty sharing my screen.
Don, can you put it in presenter mode? It might help.
I'm trying to do that, and I'm having a little bit of difficulty.
Okay.
It goes blank every time I try to do that.
Try forwarding the slides anyway. No. Okay.
Is it in presenter? Can you see it in presenter mode, Paul?
Not right now. I can see this full screen, but it's blank right now. It's black.
Yeah, that's what mine's doing also. I might not be able. Can you see it now?
Yeah, we can see it here. And if you do that full screen, we can see those slides there.
Yeah, when I go to full screen, it disappears on my. Here, I'll try it one more time.
Just go from beginning. Do from beginning. Can you do that? You try that?
That's what I'm trying to do, and every time I do, it goes blank.
Try pushing the forward button. See if there's an extra slide in there.
Hey Don, could you stop sharing? I'll share it from my screen.
That would be great. Okay, you can go ahead and advance. So before I jump into an update, I think it might be helpful just to provide a little bit of background on the Russian River and the reservoir system, the reservoirs that on the Russian River that provide really critical water supply to hundreds of thousands of people in our region, both in Mendocino, Sonoma, and Marin counties. There's two major reservoirs that are federal projects, Lake Mendocino and Lake Sonoma. They're referred to as dual purpose because they provide multiple benefits. They provide flood control protection, which is managed by the Army Corps of Engineers. And they also provide water supply, obviously, that Sonoma Water manages. And they also have significant recreational benefits. The operations of when the Army Corps is managing the reservoirs for flood control, or when Sonoma Water is managing for water supply, is dictated by storage levels in the reservoir. And then when I get to the next slide, it'll illustrate that a little bit more. For Lake Mendocino, it's located a few miles northeast of the city of Ukiah. It has what's referred to as a variable water supply pool. And again, the next slide, when we get to it, kind of illustrates that. It'll illustrate that a bit better. From November to March, it has a maximum water supply pool of 68,400 acre feet. But from May to October, it increases to 111,000 acre feet by encroaching into the flood control pool, because the risk of large storm events has really has gone down during that time period. Lake Sonoma, which is located west of the city of Healdsburg, is the much larger of the two reservoirs, and it has a flat water supply pool with just the maximum storage of 245,000 acre feet. So almost 2.5 times larger than Lake Mendocino. Next slide, please. And so this slide is a simplified cross-section of Lake Mendocino. It illustrates this variable water supply pool I was mentioning. That dashed gray line is the rule curve for the reservoir. And when the water storage level in the reservoir goes above that line, that's into the flood control pool, and the Army Corps of Engineers takes control and manages that water in accordance with their water control manual for flood control operations. When the water level in the reservoir is below that line in that blue shaded area, that's the water supply pool. And when the water level in the reservoir is there, Sonoma Water is in control of making releases to meet downstream demands and also minimum stream flow requirements. These minimum stream flow requirements are legal obligations that Sonoma Water is required to meet as terms and conditions of its water right permits. That bold black line is the observed storage since October of last year to June of this year. We're currently, storage is at about 50,000 acre feet. And as you can see, it's well below what's authorized, the storage level that's authorized to be stored in the reservoir, quite a bit. Please forward. And that blue line is the observed storage in 2021. A couple of things I'd like to point out. Number one, if you look to the far right, where the line goes down to about 12,000 acre feet, that was historically low levels that the reservoir dropped to in late October of last year. And it only has gone down to that level once before, and that was in response to the 1977 drought. Actually, other than those 2 years, the reservoirs never dropped below 20,000 acre feet, and only a handful of times has dropped below 30,000 acre feet. So really unprecedented low storage levels. The other thing I would point out is at this time last year, Lake Mendocino the storage in the reservoir was declining. This year at this time, we're still seeing actual increases, small increases in storage, about 100 acre feet a day. And this is the result of, number one, we still have some natural flow in the system, which is helping to meet downstream demands and those minimum stream flow requirements I mentioned. But we're also seeing about twice the amount of Eel River water transferred to the Potter Valley project, which is a small hydroelectric project that's owned and operated by PG&E, located in Lake County and Mendocino County. And that project transfers Eel River water through a transbasin tunnel to a powerhouse in Potter Valley. And then water from, once it passes through the powerhouse, is released in the East Branch Russian River, which is located about 14 miles upstream of Lake Mendocino, and historically represented a very significant water resource to the Russian River. Next slide, please. And so I know there's a lot going on in this slide right now by adding all these different colored lines, but each one of those lines represents storage in the reservoir for each year since 2014. And I think it really illustrates the variability we see in storage, but it also shows that we're at the very low end of almost a decade of hydrologic years that these storage levels are representing. And it really shows how low the reservoir is compared to a number of years that, since the 2014 drought. And as a matter of fact, that brown line that this year's storage level is about to intersect is 2014. Up until the historic drought we're in now was an event that was really very significant to the region. Next slide, please. And I think this slide really puts into perspective just how significant the drought has impacted our reservoirs. That blue line again is observed storage in Lake Mendocino from fall of 2019 to June of this year. And the gray line above it is the 30-year average from 1992 to 2021 for those same months. And it just goes to show what a deficit the reservoir has been and how it's declined, and really the significant amount of precipitation we're going to need over the next year or two to recover storage at the reservoir and get it back to a reliable water source for the 100,000+ of people that depend on it and the ecosystems that depend on it. Next slide, please. And this is a similar simplified cross-section for Lake Sonoma, probably of more interest to people that might be listening right now. This is really Lake Sonoma is really the major water source that for Sonoma Water to provide water supply to its retail customers. Again, you see that dashed line at the top. That's the rule curve for the reservoir. When the water level goes above that line, the Army Corps of Engineers takes control of the reservoir. However, when it's in that blue shaded area, Sonoma Water is controlling the releases, again, to meet minimum stream flow requirements and downstream demands. That black bold line is the observed storage this year since the last October to June of this year. And again, you're seeing just this really large deficit of where the storage could be. Right now, it's around 140,000 acre feet, yet we're authorized to be storing up to 245,000 acre feet. Next slide, please. And this blue line, again, is the storage for last year at Lake Sonoma. And as you can see, we're almost at the exact same point where we were last year for storage. And again, just a really large deficit showing just how low the reservoir is. And as a matter of fact, both this year and last year, the reservoir is at its lowest level since it filled at this time of year, since it filled in the mid-80s. Next slide, please. And again, each of these colored lines represents different years of storage at Lake Sonoma since 2014. And again, it just represents the the real variability that we see depending on the rainfall the region receives, but again, showing that we're at the bottom of these storage levels, and it's definitely a very, very concerning as a water manager, and looking at a reservoir that over 600,000 people rely on for their water supply. And next slide. And again, this is just a similar slide that was for Lake Mendocino. This one's for Lake Sonoma. Again, showing observed storage, the blue line since fall of 2019 to June of this year, and then the 30-year average since 1992 to 2021. Again, just showing this huge deficit that we're in. That, like, again, it's just going to take 1 to 2, maybe 3 years of above normal rainfall to really make up this deficit and recover the reservoir storage. Next slide. And so to address the ongoing drought and low storage levels in Lake Mendocino and Lake Sonoma, Sonoma Water and its retail customers are working closely together on a number of drought initiatives. I'm going to focus on Sonoma Water's actions managing the Russian River system, while my colleague, Jennifer Burke from Santa Rosa Water, will be addressing efforts by Sonoma Water's retail customers regarding water use efficiency and conservation. As I mentioned earlier, Sonoma Water is legally obligated to meet minimum stream flow requirements in the Russian River and Dry Creek as conditions of its water right permits. These requirements are met from both natural flow and releases Sonoma Water makes from Lake Mendocino and Lake Sonoma. As the watershed dries out and natural flow drops off, which we're seeing right now, minimum stream flow requirements and demands by Russian downstream users are primarily met by releases from our two reservoirs. Since the spring of 2020, Sonoma Water has been working with the Division of Water Rights at the State Water Resources Control Board to temporarily reduce minimum stream flow requirements in the Russian River in order to preserve storage in both Lake Mendocino and Lake Sonoma. Under the most recent order issued by the State Board in December 2021, Sonoma Water is managing reservoir releases to meet the lowest minimum stream flow requirements that are authorized in our water right permits. This order expires on June 8th. On May 25th, Sonoma Water filed new petitions with the State Water Board requesting to extend these lower minimum stream flow requirements for another 180 days. We are anticipating the State Board will issue an order on or around June 8th to replace the expiring order. Without a new order from the State Water Board approving these temporary changes, the minimum stream flow requirements between Lake Mendocino and Healdsburg will increase from 25 cubic feet per second to 75 cubic feet per second, and from Healdsburg to Jenner, they will increase from 35 cubic feet per second to 125 cubic feet per second. Making releases from Lake Mendocino and Lake Sonoma to meet these higher minimum stream flows would severely deplete storage in both the reservoirs, risking the water supply for hundreds of thousands of people and the threatened and endangered species that depend on the Russian River. In addition to managing river flows, Sonoma Water will also be working with its retail customers to reduce its diversions from the Russian River to reduce storage in Lake Sonoma. Like last year, Sonoma Water and its retail customers have voluntarily committed to reducing Russian River diversions by 20% between July 1 and October 31 compared to the same period in 2020. Last year, Sonoma Water and its retail customers successfully reduced Russian River diversions by nearly 24%. So far, I've described what Sonoma Water has the authority to do to protect water supply during this unprecedented drought. Sonoma Water has little influence, however, over diversions of Russian River water by other users. Reducing Russian River diversions by other users really can only be done under the authority of the State Water Resources Control Board. We saw this last year. In August of 2021, the State Water Board took unprecedented action in the Russian River watershed by curtailing over 1,800 appropriative water rights and riparian claims, including several of Sonoma Water's permits. The curtailments were suspended in response to the atmospheric river event that occurred in late October of last year. Suspension of the curtailments has remained in place based on monthly and bi-monthly water availability analyses prepared by the staff at the State Water Board. In May, the State Water Board adopted new emergency regulations for the Russian River, providing broad authority for the Division of Water Rights to curtail water rights again this summer based on water availability. Sonoma Water anticipates that based on declining natural flows and likely reduced transfers of Potter Valley project water in the upcoming weeks will significantly will result in the State Water Board issuing curtailment notices to the Russian River sometime this summer. And that's what I have for my update. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Director Rabbit.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate all the work. Next, we'll hear from Jennifer Burke, who oversees water for the city of Santa Rosa. Jennifer is also a member of the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership, which represents, I think, 13 water utilities in Sonoma and Marin counties that have joined together to provide regional solutions for water use efficiency. Jennifer?
Thank you, Director Abbott, and good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me to participate. If you could please share my PowerPoint. Great, thank you so much. As was mentioned, my name is Jennifer Burke, and I'm the director of the City of Santa Rosa's Water Department. And we are a retail water provider that purchases water from Sonoma Water and provides it to roughly 54,000 customer accounts in the Santa Rosa city limits. Next slide, please. As Director Rabbit mentioned, the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership is 13 water utilities in Sonoma and Marin counties that have joined together to provide regional solutions for water use efficiency. So I'm here today to talk about the water conservation response to the drought from not only Santa Rosa, but also Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership. Next slide, please. A little bit of background. In April 2021, Governor Newsom declared a drought emergency for the Russian River watershed. As water retailers that purchase water from Sonoma Water, we committed to reducing water use by at least 20% compared to 2020. And in June of 2021, each water retailer implemented the appropriate stage of their shortage plan to achieve at least a 20% reduction in water use compared to 2020. Next slide, please. So what does this look like for Santa Rosa? In June of 2021, the Santa Rosa City Council adopted stage 3 of our shortage plan, requiring a 20% community-wide reduction in water use, as well as a number of prohibitions, including limits on irrigation, preventing washing down hard surfaces, as well as requirements for restaurants and hotels. Next slide, please. So I was asked to share sort of the top 10 easy tips that you can do to eliminate water waste and improve water use efficiency. Next slide, please. So number 1, get to know your water use. Check your water bill and determine how much water you use. For example, indoor water use can typically be met by using no more than 50 gallons per person per day, and efficient homes can use as little as 20 to 25 gallons per person per day. Next slide, please. Even small leaks can waste quite a bit of water, so it's really important to check your water bill. You can also easily check your toilets to see if they are leaking by either getting free dye tablets from your water retailer or by placing 10 drops of food coloring into the tank at the back of your toilet. Let it sit for 10 minutes, don't flush it, and if color shows up in the bowl, you have a leak. Next slide, please. Another simple tip is turn off the tap, take shorter showers, and capture warm-up water in a bucket. Most water retailers provide free buckets, and some also have free shower timers that are available for their customers. Next slide, please. Whenever possible, only wash full loads in your clothes washer and your dishwasher. This will help you save quite a bit of water. Next slide, please. Check your shower heads and aerators to ensure they are high efficiency. Older shower heads use 2 to 4 gallons per minute, while high efficiency shower heads use 1.5 gallons per minute. Older aerators use 2 to 4 gallons per minute, and high efficiency aerators use 1 gallon per minute. Most water retailers provide high efficiency devices for free. Next slide, please. Reduce your outdoor water use. This is critically important during summer months. Water between midnight and 6 a.m. to reduce water loss from evaporation. Water your lawn and garden in 2 short cycles rather than 1 long one. This will allow water to penetrate deeper and encourage healthier roots. Also use mulch to help reduce evaporative loss. Next slide, please. If you only walk on your lawn to mow it, consider removing it and replacing it with low water use alternatives. In Santa Rosa, we currently have a drought rebate of $1.50 per square foot for removing your turf. Next slide, please. Make improvements for high efficiency irrigation, such as looking at smart weather-based irrigation controllers or installing point application irrigation such as drip systems. Next slide, please. Install low water use and drought tolerant and native plants. And there's information available on watersmartplant.org to help you pick out plants that are right for our region. And last, visit savingwaterpartnership.org to see the various rebates and incentives that are available from your water retailer. Next slide, please. So specifically for Santa Rosa, we offer a number of tools, resources, and rebates for our customers. Next slide, please. We provide numerous rebates from rainwater harvesting to gray water reuse, lawn removal, and recently we launched 2 new programs for rebates for pool covers as well as pool removal. Next slide, please. We have a number of events coming up this summer where you can pick up a free drought toolkit, including our Water Smart Expo, which will occur on June 29th at the downtown market from 5 to 8:30 p.m. in downtown Santa Rosa. Next slide, please. We also have a new tool that allows you to view your water use online in hourly, daily, weekly, and monthly increments. Those who sign up before July 8th will be entered to win a $200 credit on their water bill. Next slide, please. We also have a number of free webinars where you can learn different water use saving tips. Go to srcity.org/workshops to sign up. Next slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that very much. We were lucky enough to pick up a bucket at the Petaluma Butter and Eggs Day Parade from the booth from Petaluma Water. And I can say that I shower with that bucket each and every morning, and we do use that. It's turned out to be very efficient. So appreciate those tips. Next, we're going to hear from Chris Watt, the Senior Engineering Geologist with the North Coast Regional Water Board. Chris has some information about how the drought is impacting people with wells and resources to help our groundwater users. Chris?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So share the screen here. All right, is that showing up? So my name is Chris Watt. I'm a senior engineering geologist with our regional water board. Our office is based in Santa Rosa, and we cover territory all the way up to the Oregon border and east to Siskiyou County. And we heard earlier about the large water supply and municipal water deliveries. But some folks in the region, quite a few actually, a very high number, rely on private groundwater wells for their water supply. And we know that in times of low rainfall and low recharge during droughts, that the water quality in some of these shallow wells can be degraded or become poor. And so, a private well owner is really responsible for making sure that they know what's in their water. And we encourage private well owners to regularly test their wells for things like minerals, things like arsenic and nitrate can be in those wells. And if you don't test your well, you wouldn't know that. The Sonoma County put together a great resource hub for well owners. It's the residential water well users page on the socoemergency.org page, where you can learn about drinking water safety, different testing, laboratories that provide tests, and different treatment technologies in the event you have something in your water that needs to be removed. There's also a website that the State Water Board has put out where you can look to see if there is known water quality issues in your neighborhood. And that's called the Aquifer Risk Map that the State Water Board has put out. And I will show that here just a minute. And this is a nice tool that you can turn on different layers to see what's known about water in your region. And here I'm displaying the naturally occurring arsenic that is found in the Santa Rosa to Geyserville area. And it's just some color codes to kind of alert you that there might be naturally occurring arsenic in your water. Another initiative that's being worked on in our office that I think is timely is about groundwater protection and the need to protect groundwater in times of drought when surface water supplies are low. Folks tend to rely more on their groundwater supplies. And so as we see changes in the availability of surface water, there's definitely going to be a higher demand on groundwater, and that only increases the need to make sure that it's of a quality that can serve all of its beneficial uses. So our office has been working on a policy statement that really emphasizes that, and it'll be considered this fall by our board, which will really provide some direction to staff and to the public about how we're protecting groundwater. That can be found on the tentative orders page of the North Coast Water Board, and there's a link here. And then finally, there's funding that's out there. The State Water Board has opened a countywide and regional funding solicitation that counties or eligible partners such as nonprofits and resource conservation districts can seek funding to implement regional programs that address drought-related or contamination issues for water well users in disadvantaged and low-income households. It can also serve small state water systems that have a small number of connections. And this is an ongoing funding source. So in the event that folks are seeing impacts from drought, like wells going dry, there is some funding out there if enough people get together. So those are the only things I have to share, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Chris. I know many of you have questions out there, so we'll do our best to respond to as many as we can. And I'm going to ask Paul Gullickson, our county's communications manager, to join us to tell you how you can submit those questions to our panel. Paul?
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Rabbit. We just want to remind everybody that, as Supervisor Rabbit mentioned earlier, there are 3 ways that you can pose your questions to our panelists today. If you have joined us on Zoom, We invite you to type your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, as some have already done. We have Sonoma Water staff and others standing by ready to respond to those questions, as they are already doing. And if you are watching this on Facebook or YouTube, we invite you to type your questions into the comments area in the Facebook post itself, or you're welcome to email questions to us at publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org. That's publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org. Supervisor Rabbit, I'll turn it back over to you. Do you want to start in with some of the questions?
Sure. No, thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. And I see a couple from Mary Callahan of the Press Democrat. And one I think would go back to Don Seymour, if Don's with us. What do we know about PG&E's variance application, the likely timing on FERC's answer, and the implications for flows into Lake Mendocino and the voluntary water sharing agreement that folks are currently allowed to sign up for? Again, I guess talking about Potter Valley and everything on the north end of the Russian River. Don?
Yeah, so taking on the first part of that question, PG&E filed that variance on May 13th. It was a bit of a surprise that because previously there's been a drought working group that PG&E's worked with prior to submitting such variances. However, FERC has acknowledged they've received the variance, and there's currently a comment period. I believe it's open until June 9th. And I think FERC's gonna, has not indicated when they're gonna, what actions they're gonna take, but it's my feeling that FERC will approve that variance without some relief. They would drain down Lake Pillsbury to pretty unsafe levels. So I think it's something that'll be issued by FERC probably within the next 30 days. And at that point, we're gonna see transfers from the Potter Valley project very similar to last year, which were drastic reductions from what we normally see. Which gets to Mary's second question on the water supply sharing agreements, because those agreements are going to be based on natural flow that's available, and also those Potter Valley project imports. And if there's just not enough water to share, it's going to be very difficult for that program to be successful this year once those reductions are made. Still, absolutely have to see what FERC does. I can't say, there's no way I can guess what FERC is going to do. But again, if we see some of the reductions PG&E's requested, I think it's going to be very difficult for that program to function this year, because there's just not going to be the amount of water necessary for senior water right holders to share with the juniors.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate that. Mary also asks, does the State Water Board's new regulation from May 24th affect anything Sonoma County residents or suppliers are already doing in terms of water use restrictions? She says, for example, prohibitions on watering non-functional commercial and institutional lawns, or restricting watering to certain days of the week or hours of the day. I'm sure that both you and Jennifer could probably address that one, but do you foresee more advanced water shortage stages coming soon?
So other than, Sonoma Water has voluntarily committed with its customers this year again to reduce its diversions by 20%. That goes to how that impacts the retail end on, how they manage that reduction of delivery of Sonoma Water compared to, local resources they have to supplement, or, the level of conservation they'll need to achieve to meet that. I think Jennifer might be better to answer on really how the regulation might impact the retail customers.
Sure. Thanks, Don, and thanks, Director Rabbit. In terms of the new emergency regulation, it does require all the water retailers in this area to provide information to what's known as commercial, industrial, and institutional customers, to let them know that there is a new requirement that prevents irrigation of what's defined as non-functional turf. So in Santa Rosa, we are putting all of that material together and sending it out to that customer base so that they know that it is in effect starting June 10th. And if there's questions or enforcement needs, that is all being done by the state of California. So we're providing all that information to our customers. And then in terms of the other regulations, we are already in stage 3 of our shortage plan, which is a 20% community-wide reduction. And all our prohibitions and restrictions are in place. So we're in compliance with all the other pieces of the emergency ordinance or emergency regulation.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that. You know, I know there's always a lot of questions during times of drought about development. And there was a question regarding, you know, how can we have new development in times of drought when we're all trying to save as much water as possible? It was answered in the Q&A here on Zoom, but I'll just read the answer that Ann Dubay posted. And that is that the urban water management plans prepared by local water providers include growth projections, planned water projects, and water conservation efforts. And these plans address how water will be provided to meet planned growth. Sonoma Water's plan can be found at www.sonomawater.org.uwmp. And Jennifer added from the city of Santa Rosa's perspective, due to state and local regulations, new developments are required to be extremely water efficient and must comply with the Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance and the Cal Green Building Code. In fact, new development must be 20% more water efficient than existing development. New development often exceeds this target. The City of Santa Rosa's water shortage contingency plan details how the city will respond to a reduction in water supply. During water shortage stages 5 through 8, 30% shortage or greater, new construction must offset its water demand to achieve a net zero impact. I always know that that issue comes up. It's interesting as we have both a drought and a housing crisis at the same time. We do try to accommodate the additional growth that's anticipated to be through the urban water management plans, which do have a 20-year outlook and a 5-year update, and our stress test with the most severe drought on record, which is the one we're in now. So there is a lot of making sure that that is held firm. Moratoriums are really, in land use parlance, I can say this as an architect, kind of the nuclear option. And you have to be careful to be able to make the findings, because what you're really doing is it's a constitutional issue that becomes a taking issue. And so if the findings aren't there, and conservation alone is not necessarily adequate to make findings to in place a moratorium. It has to get significantly worse, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at that. Someone did ask, are slides to be made available after the meeting to reference the links? I certainly hope so. Paul, can you confirm?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that one up, Supervisor Rabbit. I wanted to make clear that we will be making those slides available. We will be posting those on our website, socoemergency.org. We also just let people know that a recording of this presentation will be available for those who came late or whatever. Will be available on Facebook and YouTube.
Great, thank you very much. And maybe Jennifer can help us with this one, because there always seems to be a question or two about pools and spas and either filling or topping off. What's the current situation in at least Santa Rosa in terms of pool use and water?
Yes, we do get a lot of questions about pools currently in the stage of shortage that we're in. We don't have any limitations on filling or installing new pools. As we get to higher stages of our shortage plan, we do start having limitations on that. In the meantime, what we are doing is encouraging people to be as efficient as possible. We have just launched a new pool cover rebate. So by installing a pool cover, you help reduce evaporative loss quite a bit. We have also put out a new pool removal rebate. So if there's folks that are interested in removing their pools and replacing them with low water use alternatives, we have a new rebate and incentive to encourage customers to do that.
Great, thank you very much. This might be a quick one for you, Jennifer. Someone asked on the questions about drilling a well within the city of Santa Rosa. What's the answer of that?
You are allowed to drill a well in the city of Santa Rosa. We are not the regulatory agency for wells. You actually have to go through Sonoma County PRMD, and they will provide you all of the information about what's required to install a well. Once you have a well permit, and if you are going to install a well and you're connected to the city's water system, you will have to put in a backflow device on the backside of your meter to ensure that we don't have any potential contamination of the public water system from an on-site water supply.
Great, thank you very much. And then there was another question, since I have you there, Jennifer, regarding recycled water, which I think is a great resource. Obviously, Santa Rosa sends a portion of the recycled water to the geysers. What's the status of that particular use, and what's available for our ag friends, and how is that working presently? I know that resource also goes down in times of drought as well.
Yes, so great question about recycled water. The city of Santa Rosa is the owner and operator of the regional wastewater treatment plant, and we provide wastewater treatment for the cities of Santa Rosa, Roanoke Park, Cotati, Sebastopol, and South Park County Sanitation District. We reuse most years 100% of our recycled water. And that means that we beneficially reuse all the water that comes into the treatment plant and is treated. We have seen in the last couple of years the amount of sewage coming into the plant dropping by 1.5 billion gallons. And then last year, 1 billion gallons. So we do see during times of drought that we have less recycled water coming to our treatment plant. As I mentioned, we beneficially reuse 100% of our recycled water. So roughly 2/3 goes to the geysers, steam fields, to produce clean green energy, providing green energy for 100,000 homes in this area. And then we have recycled water that is provided to the city of Roanoke Park for urban irrigation, and a small system in Santa Rosa for urban irrigation. That's about 400 to 500 million gallons per year. And that benefits by offsetting potable water use that we purchase from Sonoma Water. And then on the agricultural side, we provide recycled water for approximately 6,400 acres of farmland. That water supply is an interruptible supply. So during times of drought, when we have less water available, we do provide allocations to our customers. Similarly, like we do on the potable water side, if we have less water, we can provide allocations in higher levels of our shortage plan.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that. There was another question, and Mary Callahan asked about La Nina and the outlook going forward. And I wonder if, I'm not sure who would be the appropriate person, maybe Don or Chris. Can we talk about the extraordinary drought that we're in, the length of drought that we're in, the outlook going forward, and the fact seemingly that we're in this pattern of very volatile weather patterns going forward, and how we're planning to adapt to that?
Well, I would just say, La Nina has, some correlation to precipitation. However, it's really seen in the Central Valley in Southern California. There's very little correlation for La Nina and El Nino in Northern California. We're kind of on that border where we really see it can go either way, 50-50. It could be drought, or it can be above normal rainfall. So it's really not a very good predictor for our area. I would say going forward, Sonoma Water has been teaming with both private companies and Scripps Institute, Center for Western Weather Extremes, on developing forecast tools that are in the 90 to 120 day range. Those are known as seasonal, subseasonal forecasts. Right now, those forecasts have not shown a lot, up until now, haven't shown a lot of skill in helping us kind of know where we're going. but there is a lot of interest in research and improving the skills of those forecasts that would be really critical going into the September fall timeframe and getting a better understanding of what type of rainfall we be seeing over the next 90 days, so November through January. So we are working closely with research and private companies on improving that technology.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate that.
Supervisor Rabbit,
Please.
if I may, our interpreters are asking everybody to just kind of slow down a little bit in the answers. They're having a hard time keeping up. This is complicated information, and I certainly feel for them. We really appreciate them being here for that. So,
Thank you for that reminder. Very much appreciated. There's always a question or two from folks who have been taking water conservation very seriously and have been reducing their use of water by significant percentage. Can someone talk about what those folks are going to be asked to do going forward? Maybe Jennifer?
Oops. Sorry about that.
There you go.
Yes, happy to talk to that. So in Santa Rosa specifically, our current shortage is requiring us to be in a stage 3 of our shortage plan, which is a 20% community-wide reduction. So for those folks that are as efficient as possible, thank you so much. Please keep it up. We're not asking you to do anything more. For those folks that may not know if they can reduce their water use more, we have a number of incentives, rebates, tools, and tips available where we can help customers. In addition, we offer free water smart checkups where our expert staff will come out to your home, review all of your water using devices indoors and outdoors, and let you know if there's anything more you can do to reduce water use. And for those that know that they can reduce their water use, we have a number of rebate programs that we can help you implement water savings. If we get to higher stages of drought, we actually will provide allocations to our customers, and those allocations will be based on a per person per day water use, making sure that those that have already conserved will not be penalized because we give everyone a per person per day allocation. In terms of the question about where are we with savings, I can speak for Santa Rosa. We implemented stage 3 of our shortage plan in June of last year, end of June. So we've been tracking water savings from July through last month. Well, actually through April. We don't quite have May data. And from July through April, we've seen a 19% reduction in water use in Santa Rosa.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. And then for our friends who are outside of incorporated cities, perhaps Chris can help us out. For those that do depend on their wells for water and they're worried that it's going to run dry as groundwater levels drop, are there resources available to help them going forward with a new well or other actions to make sure that water can continue to be delivered to their property?
Yeah, there's a couple things out there. In low-income households and disadvantaged communities, there is funding available, but it requires a local entity to step in, like a nonprofit or an RCD or a county, to kind of administer the program. So we're hoping that through this drought that there might be some interest in that. So that's probably a near term. The longer term is there's definitely an interest at the state level to consolidate and expand small water systems. So folks that are groundwater users that are on the fringe of a small water system can inquire about becoming part of that district. There's a whole lot of implications that go with that might be beyond the scope of this call, but there's definitely an interest at the state level, because it's really necessary to make sure that people have water, and sometimes the best option is to bring them into a public water system.
Thanks, Chris. And there's another question for you here from Mary Callahan, who writes, have there been, I think it goes to your map showing the naturally occurring arsenic, but have there been substantial number of reports of concentrated substances or contamination in private wells because of the dropping aquifer levels?
That information comes in slowly, and there isn't really, unfortunately, it's not really a good mechanism to get that information, other than if somebody happens to test their well and call up one of the agencies that look at those things. I did put a link in the question and answer queue here, that there is a website that the Division of Drinking Water at the state has, where they're now starting to collect private well data. And so we can get that into the system so we can use it.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Lawrence asks about, we've heard about reductions in Santa Rosa, about how about the other cities in the county? I can tell you here in Petaluma, it's much the same, trying to reach that 20% goal going forward. And again, last year we were successful, and we hope to be as successful this year going forward, and keeping it in front of mind. And that really was why we wanted to have this drought town hall meeting tonight, to make sure that everyone was aware of the situation, how much water was in the reservoirs or is in the reservoirs, and what actions one could take to make sure that they're aware of how much water they're using and to minimize it going forward. So we do appreciate that. And Susan did write about how Sonoma County is doing, and we know that other places in the state are not quite doing as well in reducing their water consumption. But we have a closed system here. It's all that much more important for us to stay on top of it and to make sure that we are as efficient as possible. Paul, I'm trying to look through the last of the questions to make sure we get them all out.
Hey, I want to applaud you all. We've been really able to address the bulk of the questions today, and I think we've covered a lot of material. We just want to tell our audience members that if we did not answer your questions, please feel free. We'll try to get to them, but please feel free to email us at publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org. That's public affairs, one word, @sonoma-county.org, and we'll make sure we get back to you. As Supervisor Rabbit mentioned, this is just one in a series of live webinar updates that we have been holding and will continue to hold monthly here concerning the drought situation in Sonoma County through into the fall. So we hope you will join us for our next one, which is scheduled for Thursday, July 7th. So I just want to join Supervisor Rabbit in thanking all of our panelists, in particular our Spanish interpreter, Juan and Elizabeth, and Odie, our ASL interpreters. So Supervisor Rabbit, I'll give it back to you for final thoughts.
No, I appreciate that. And I do think that Grant Davis might want to make the last and closing statement.
Excellent.
Grant is on our attendee list. If you can pull him over to our panelists, that would be great.
Gilbert, can you promote Grant to panelists? That may take a couple seconds here, but that would be great to hear from Grant.
I apologize for doing that on the fly.
No, that's great.
Hand raised.
It's like having somebody from the audience come up on stage. It may take a few minutes, but it's worth it.
Director Rabbit, that was unexpected. I definitely appreciate the information that came out today. I am unfortunately suffering from one of our pandemics, COVID, tested positive just this week. So I'm housebound, and appreciating all of the commentary. Appreciate you, Director Rabbit, for hosting the town hall, and the level of questions are clearly sparking interest in our region. So just continue to conserve, continue to follow the mandates, and we'll get through this. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Grant. I appreciate that. And thank you to Sonoma Water for all the great work, as well as all of our contractors, including, of course, Jennifer at Santa Rosa. I think that, as we do go forward, maybe one idea is to have a frequently asked questions regarding the drought be available for folks, because it seems like we get similar questions as we go through these periods of drought. We want to make sure the information can get out there. Again, we've done well. We need to continue to challenge ourselves to do even better as we enter in this third year of drought, unprecedented as it is, but obviously a new pattern for us going forward, and one we're going to have to deal with, adapt, and it doesn't mean that we won't have periods of time where we're going to have to conserve like we are in now. So with that, I think, Paul, I'll sign off and say thank you to everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk again in a month's time. I'm not sure if it's going to be new precipitation between then and now, but we'll talk about where we're at, what other things are happening, and what else we can do to make sure that we minimize the use of water. Appreciate it. Thank you.